Hi, my name is Brian Losgen. I'm with Microsoft Corporation. I'd like to welcome you to a series of videos that I've put together on working with the ESB Toolkit 2.0. Enjoy.
The scenario behind this demo is very simple. This is an order process. We interface with the order process using SharePoint, and in this virtual machine, I'm using WSS 3.0. So the idea is we will come into this new orders document list, say new, and an order will open up an info path. I'm going to call this order number 1, and we're going to make it for $100. And I'm just going to add a few orders here, and then we'll walk through what happens to those orders. And then what we're going to do is we'll drill in and see what the implementation artifacts are behind the scenes here. So the business rule that we've got here is that if an order is for under $500, that the order will get processed without any intervention. So it'll go straight through. So you might have noticed I created the very first order as being a value of $100, and so that means it will have flowed straight through, and we're not going to be asked for intervention. If it's over $500, then it will go into a pending folder, and then from the pending folder we'll make a decision. We'll decide whether to approve it or deny it. If we approve it, then it goes through the order process and ends up in the completed orders document list. If we deny it, it ends up in the denied folders. In the denied orders document list. Now you'll notice that the new orders is empty now. I'm using BizTalk. It is watching I have a receive location pointing at this document list, so it's been picking up the orders in the background as I've been adding them. Now if we come into completed, so here's the first order that I submitted, and for the value of $100, and you can see it flowed straight through, and that's the only order we've got there, and we have nothing in denied. So now if I come in here into pending, these are the other three that I created that are waiting for us to make a decision on. So I will choose this, I will open it, and this is order number 2. I'm going to approve that. I'm going to open up order number 3. I'm going to deny that, and we're going to leave order 4 sitting there for a couple of minutes. Now, that's all well and good, but what's going on in the background here? So if we come back and let's take a look here first. We'll start here. So there's several moving parts here. This is the beginning of it though. So we're now inside the application, the BizTalk application, and you can see that there are 3 enabled receive locations. The first one here, this is picking up all of the new orders. So that was when I created the ones in the new document list. This is what was picking them up. Then we have 2 other receive locations. Both of these are pointing at the same pending orders document list, but they're calling different views. So there's a status on the order that says approved, denied, or new, and that's what we're listening in on. So I've got some views created in SharePoint, and the BizTalk receive location is pointing at those views. This is a handy technique. If you're not familiar with the SharePoint adapter, this is a really handy technique, because what it allows you to do is you can create views, SharePoint views, that people can use, and then BizTalk can be monitoring those same views. So that's what's happening, but then how are we making the actual decisions, and what exactly is happening behind the scenes? So if everything's okay, I've got 3 separate itineraries here that might be applied. If everything is okay, then we come in through this. So this is the itinerary, and I'll show you how it's selected later on. So we receive the message, and then we go to this orchestration service that I've created. So in order to do that, I created an orchestration, I deployed it to the BizTalk infrastructure, and I registered it with the ESB as being a service. So this is keeping with the mindset of having services that are really just functionality that's deployed into the fabric of your bus and available for whatever service to call. So that's one thing that I've got, and these follow the same pattern. All 3 of them follow the same pattern. So process order just calls this orchestration extender. If the order is over $500, then we have a get approval service, which is also an orchestration service. and somehow we're going to select this itinerary. I'll show you that in a minute. And if during the approval process it's successful, then we come back and we use a process order itinerary to complete the order. Or if it's denied, then we come in here and there's a deny order process. So that's what's happening at that level. Now that we've seen the itineraries, let's see, how are they actually selected? And in order to show you that, let's come into this receive location. You'll notice I'm using itinerary select receive XML as a receive location, and this is the one that's pointing at new orders. So if we come in here, let's take a look at what we've got. There's not a whole lot here, but you'll notice that I've got, as a fact key, I'm using resolver.itinerary, and the important part and the magic that ties all of this together is this policy that I'm using. So this is new for ESP Toolkit 2.0, the BRI resolver. So what exactly does that mean? Northwind.orders.approval. Over here, I've got a couple of rules set up. So northwind.orders.approval, and inside that I've got a couple of rules. And the first rule says if the order total is less than $500, set itinerary name to Northwind Orders process order. Now, what that means is that we're going to call this set itinerary name helper class function, and it's going to look up that itinerary. So what happens is when the order comes in, it's picked up by the receive location, the itinerary selects pipeline runs, it realizes it needs to call the rules engine, calls the rules engine, passes in the order. And we examine the order here, find out what the value is, and then based on that, we return a symbolic key. So this Northwind Orders process order, that's an itinerary that I've deployed inside this virtual machine. So it's available inside the itinerary repository. A lookup is done in the itinerary repository. The itinerary is retrieved, and the itinerary is applied to the message. And that's how it works. Then the other side of that is, of course, if approval is required, so this is the opposite. If the total is greater than or equal to $500, then we use this other itinerary. We stamp that other itinerary on it. So this is really cool. This is really cool at several levels. Number one, what we're doing here is we are dynamically selecting an itinerary based on something in the content of the message, and we've got it out in the rules engine. So I could come in here, if my business rule changes and I want to raise that threshold from $500 to $1,000, I can change it here in the rules. I don't have to recompile anything. I don't have to change any other configuration. I don't have to go anywhere else. I just change it here and I'm done. The other thing that's really interesting is the fact that what we're doing is we've decoupled and we've made completely asynchronous the human intervention aspect of interacting with this process. So if something were to happen, say SQL Server goes down or BizTalk's being upgraded in the background or something like that, for whatever reason BizTalk is not available, this process can keep on running because people can go in, they will see things sitting in the pending folder, they can approve, deny, and they will batch up in there with a status of approved or denied, and then when BizTalk comes back online, it's going to catch up. So that's a very powerful pattern because what we've done is we've taken the SOA tenets of asynchronous and decoupled and we've extended it to the human intervention aspects. That is very cool. Now, let's come in here and let's say open this and let's approve this guy too. So now that's interesting. If we come into the completed orders now, we should see multiple orders that we've approved. And if we come into denied, I think, yeah, we only denied the one of them here. The other one should be arriving. There it is. Now, let's take a look at this other tab. I mean, that's really cool, but what else can we do? What else we can do is we can use BAM, and that's what I've done here. So I had this demo running and working and I was happy with it, and then I decided, you know what, I've done these things in the past where I use BAM and I use reporting services and I host it inside SharePoint, and I find it's just a great way to give people, process owners, visibility into the metrics behind their processes. So I thought I'd throw this together, and total time for me to do this, I'm estimating probably about 4 hours, something like that, 4 or 5 hours. A lot of that would have been faster, but I don't work with SharePoint all the time. I don't work with reporting services all the time. So there was a certain degree of fumbling around and then some time spent making the graphs look pretty and figuring out how to render the graphs properly. But what we can see here is we see a list of the ones that have been processed. On the right-hand side here, we see kind of a speedometer type indication of where are we at. What is the average intervention duration here? So we're tracking it. We are looking at the relative dispositions, so we can see 2/3 of them were approved and 1/3 was denied. And then when have these things happened? And that's why I delayed, by the way. So you can see here the delay that happened in between the 2 points. Now, the interesting part is the way I implemented the BAM, because really this is decoupled too. I didn't change anything about the process. I'm using some of the default properties that the SharePoint adapter gives me, and I'm tracking those context properties, and that's where I'm deriving the metrics. So when I write out to the SharePoint portal, that's the document created time. When I retrieve it, I can tell what the document created time is, and I can also tell what the last modified time is, and that's how I'm coming up with the duration in between the delta. So it's pretty cool because here again, I'm leveraging the fact that BizTalk's BAM is an observation model-driven piece of software, and I didn't have to do anything to the message. I didn't have to change my process at all, just by virtue of the fact that I was writing out to SharePoint and then retrieving back from SharePoint. That let me figure out the timings without needing to do anything like try to correlate running instances and responses with running instances and so forth. So I hope you've liked this little demo. I've shown you what I think are some very cool techniques and some very powerful techniques that we as BizTalk developers can use out of the Microsoft stack to really leverage the capabilities that the stack provides us. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.